Update. Am I the a-hole for announcing my pregnancy first? Original story. I, 26 female, am married to my dear husband, 26 male, and have an older sister, 27 female, who I'll call Kathy. For some background, Kathy was the golden child, but my parents rapidly changed their tune when she failed uni and started a party lifestyle for a bit. No longer the case. Suddenly, I was the favorite, because I finished school and had a moderately successful life. I think it's BS that my parents have/had favorites, and I largely keep my distance, but it's something that has troubled Kathy a lot. So, dear husband and I recently got pregnant. Surprise. And though I keep a healthy distance from my parents, we still talk. Boundaries are really important to have with them because they will trample over your entire life in privacy. COVID restrictions are a thing, and I'm not big on big parties anyways. So I decided to just tell my family about the latest news during a monthly family visit last Friday. I was excited to share the news, but I also didn't beat around the bush. Once everyone had done the preliminary catching up, I said dear husband and I had some news, and then said I was pregnant. My parents, sisters, and grandmother lost it, screaming and laughing and crying in joy. This is the first grandchild/great-grandchild/niece or nephew, so they understandably had pretty dramatic reactions. Everyone was excited, except for Kathy, who stayed completely silent the entire time. Once things calmed down a bit, I asked if Kathy was still there, and she said yes, but she had to go and deal with something. I thought it odd, but didn't give it much further thought. Later, I got a text from her saying that she was going to make a pregnancy announcement then too, but that I had ruined it. I should have asked her specifically before making the announcements because she, as firstborn, should have been the one to have the first grandchild, and that my child would get all the attention and love and hers would be second-rate. I sent her a text saying that I had no clue she was pregnant, and congratulated her, and that I was sorry she didn't get to make the announcements when she wanted to. I then, possibly quite stupidly, asked when her due date was. Kathy just said, "Don't worry, you're first," and has not answered anything since. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole. You had no idea she was pregnant. She's just mad because she's not the center of attention, and that's her problem, not yours. I feel terrible for Ruby because you just know her sister is going to be competing like this for the foreseeable future. And while their parents deserve the lion's share of the blame for playing favorites and creating this dynamic, Kathy clearly desires it because it benefits her. And because she grew up in the role of favorite. It's hers and her children's by right. Not the a-hole. How could you be? You didn't know she was pregnant. She didn't know you were pregnant. What's with people making a big deal about having the first kid in the family? In fairness, the big deal aspect predates my sister and I. My entire family absolutely spoils the firstborn of every generation, to the point of absurdity. They seem to be bigger a-holes than her. I understand why she's scared that her child passed second. She should cut the contact or go low for her mental health. They are toxic. Unfortunately, my parents are low contact with her. She's not disowned, but only just, and it happened at her lowest point too. I agree with my parents being the a-holes, which is part of why I'm super low contact with them too. It must have messed her up though, to go from being the golden child to the disappointment that quickly and that harshly. It was awful. Not the a-hole, but try to have some compassion for your sister because your parents are the true a-holes here. They raised you both in a way that encourages you to compete for their affection, and she hasn't broken free of it the way you have. She probably thought that announcement would get her back the love they've been withholding, only to find she was out of luck. Not your fault at all, but I am loath to get too negative with her, because this all comes from your parents' horrible approach to parenting. Exactly this. I said this a lot better than I could have. It's just difficult since we're both adults now on where to draw the line, I suppose you'd say. And now for the update. First things first, I want to thank each and every one of you who commented, voted, and gave their feedback and advice. The outpouring of support was both shocking and overwhelmingly touching. Y'all's compassion was amazing. Thank you all for taking the time. Now on to the update. Sorry it took so long. Kathy took a bit to respond to me. So I waited about a day, and then sent Kathy a long message, essentially saying that I knew she was hurting right now, but that we needed to bond together for our kids. That our parents did wrong by all of us kids, and that we needed to stop the cycle then and there, but we could only do that if we worked together. Corny, I know, but it needed saying. I then finished off by asking her to call me when she had time. Well, she called me after a couple days, and the first thing she did was apologize. Some of you guessed that she had built this up in her head as a band-aid for her relationship with the family, and you were right. I know some people think she was lying about being pregnant, but she was really crying on the phone and full of remorse. She said she was furious initially, and then she was sad. We used to be really close before my parents started pitting us against each other, and she realized that our kids could grow up that close to one another and not resent each other, and she felt guilty for being so greedy. She said she was also afraid because she's not as financially well off as I am, and as a result is afraid for her baby's quality of life, and knew that the golden child would want for nothing. We agreed to take steps to make sure boundaries are enforced and mutual on both our ends, and she agreed to get back into therapy with the potential of a group session in the future. I'm going to be proactive with my parents and making sure things are fair, and I'm reaching out to a friend of mine whose youngest no longer needs their baby supplies and see if she'll be willing to donate them to Kate. Or sell for cheap, that kind of thing. I'm not holding my breath too much because actions speak louder than words, but I'm cautiously optimistic for the future. Check in your and her area for a Buy Nothing group. We have one here and have gotten and given some amazing stuff. Our group is on Facebook. Second this, constantly rotating set of toys and clothes all for free. It's fantastic. Thanks for the update. Good to hear that y'all are trying to mend your fences. Glad to hear things are out in the open. I don't know why, but I feel far more optimistic than you do. I feel very sorry for your sister in your first post, even if she was wrong in that instance. About being proactive with her parents about fairness, I'm curious what that entails if you don't mind sharing? I assume that you would continue to keep your distance. I always wanted a cousin that same age as me, so hopefully your babies will get on well. Best wishes and congratulations to you both. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for snapping at my sister at a family dinner? 4 years ago, I, 29 female, miscarried my daughter at 17 weeks of pregnancy. It was a very traumatic experience, and I was in the hospital for a few days because I bled a lot. While I was still in the hospital recovering, my sister came and told me she was pregnant. At the time, I wasn't able to process her news, and my lack of congratulating or being happy for her pissed her off. And 2 weeks later, she told me I was selfish and should have been happy to celebrate her news as I was laying in a hospital bed having lost my baby girl. At that point, 2 weeks on, I was still in a very dark place, and I will admit her telling me was something I struggled with, and I felt guilty for a while until that guilt turned into dislike for her lack of understanding and empathy for me. Our relationship was strained, and we didn't really talk or interact during her pregnancy or when she had my nephew first. Over time, she acted like nothing happened. About 2 years ago, I told her she had really hurt me. She told me I had hurt her, so we were even. I suffered a second miscarriage at 8 weeks, around that time, and I never told my sister about it. I am expecting a little boy in June. This whole pregnancy has been terrifying. From worrying about another late miscarriage to worrying about a stillbirth, it has all been a very real experience for me. My sister was upset I didn't tell her early on in my pregnancy. Then she was mad I wasn't trying to have her be more involved. She confronted me about it at a family dinner, right before the dinner started, and told me we're sisters and I should include her since she's been there, done that, and I've never experienced this stage before. Dinner started, so I didn't get to say anything right then. I hadn't planned to hold it in, but then she made a passive-aggressive comment that at least mom and dad make the effort to bring everyone together and act like we're all family, and she was glaring at me and I snapped. I told her how dare she expects me to act like things are normal when she treated me like crap during the most painful time in my life instead of being understanding. I told her I had felt guilty initially for not being able to be happy, but 2 weeks later, she decides to act like I was a monster for not being happy about her news. And then she expects me to act like everything is fine and we're fine, and that's not going to happen. I told her how she responded to me changed our relationship. My parents and husband calmed me down, and my dad commented that I needed to be careful and think of my baby. Then it came out that I'd had another miscarriage, and it was a crap show. My sister called me a witch for snapping at her the way I did in front of our parents, and she told me it was me who started the whole thing, but not saying congratulations when she told me the news of her pregnancy. She told me I was the selfish one because I was in pain, etc., and that I should be the one making the effort and not her. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Announcing your pregnancy to someone who's in the hospital recovering from their own miscarriage is tactless at best and heartless at worst. Then she had the audacity to be mad that you weren't happy for her? I can understand why you didn't tell her about this pregnancy earlier. I wouldn't have either. Yeah, this is crazy. Also, sister keeps on freaking going by. At this point, I can only call it purposefully riling up Opie. You cannot be this dense, man. I also lost a daughter at 17 weeks, and if my sister had done that to me while I was in the hospital recovering, I would never speak to her again. You were not the a-hole, and your sister was an awful human being. So awful. Big time. I lost my first at 16 weeks. Second was a 30-week stillbirth. Third was an 18-week miscarriage. Then I had my son. Another miscarriage. Then my daughter. I would have gone absolutely no contact with this despicable excuse for a human. Not the a-hole. Your sister sounds like a major one for wanting all the news to be about or involve herself in, so she can make it more about her. You have every right to keep your pregnancy a secret if you wish to, and I seriously hope you stay okay and give birth to a happy, healthy little one, Opie. Best of wishes for you on that regard. Seriously, why does everything have to be about sister? Opie's miscarriage had absolutely nothing to do with sister. Sister could have taken finding out that information as an opportunity to reflect on why she was shut out, but would rather play the victim. What a jerk. Not the a-hole. Your sister is essentially blaming you for not grieving in a way that accommodated her need for validation. Her expectations for you when you were dealing with the aftermath of a miscarriage were totally unrealistic and entirely self-centered. She needs to grow up and realize that the world does not revolve around her. Until then, I would suggest you make it clear to her and the rest of your family that your very real grief will never come second to her selfish need for validation. And every time she brings it up without an apology and changed behavior, she's just driving a wedge further between you two. Seriously though, who does that? What she did was like showing up at a funeral and announcing your pregnancy, and then getting mad at anyone there who doesn't take a break from their sorrow to appropriately congratulate her. You were still in the hospital for crying out loud. Holy crap, that is so callous and inconsiderate. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not replacing my nephew's pants and shoes after my daughter threw up on them? My husband and I have 2 daughters. Amelia is 6 and Paige 3. Paige recently started throwing up whenever she gets scared. We're not entirely sure why she does this, but we know she can't control it. My brother, sister-in-law, and their kids, 7 male and 5 female, were here yesterday, and one of the first things we told them was that nobody's allowed to scare Paige, and that if she gets scared, she will throw up. My nephew wanted to test this, so he hid behind Paige's door and scared her when she went to her room. She threw up on his pants and shoes and ran to find me. I calmed Paige down and started to get her ready for her nap while my husband cleaned up the vomit, when my sister-in-law came to me asking about when I'll pay her for my nephew's pants and shoes or when I'll buy new ones. I asked what she was talking about, and she said that since Paige destroyed the clothes, I need to replace them. First of all, I'm pretty sure vomit comes out in the wash. If not, we have some kind of stain-removing fairy/genie/wizard living in our washing machine. And second, everyone was given a warning that if they scare Paige, she'll throw up, and nephew decided to scare her anyway. My sister-in-law got huffy and insisted that we need to replace nephew's clothes. My brother tried telling her it's fine and it'll come out in the wash, but she continued to argue. I eventually told her she could either shut up or leave. She chose the latter and has been complaining to my brother about the pants and the shoes since. Am I the a-hole for not replacing my nephew's pants and shoes after he made my daughter throw up in them? We told them was that nobody's allowed to scare Paige and that if she gets scared, she will throw up. My nephew wanted to test this, so he hid behind Paige's door and scared her. Not the a-hole. That's all I needed to make that decision. Exactly this. I was totally ready to go the other way when I first read the title, but Obi told them not to do it and exactly what would happen if they did. It's not their fault the kid didn't listen. And they're not destroyed. Sister-in-law is just looking for some money/new stuff because it's totally washable. Definitely not today, Hall. Not today, Hall. Your sister-in-law sounds difficult. Yeah. Not today, Hall. Also, I'm surprised that this was your sister-in-law's only reaction. Not surprised that her son disobeyed a direct request or an apology for his behavior. At least he learned that actions have consequences. Not today, Hall. I don't suppose in all your sister-in-law's grandstanding she bothered to address the tormenting her 7-year-old son did to your 3-year-old daughter? And how she's going to teach your nephew to respect other people? And if your nephew jumped out trying to scare your daughter and tipped red wine, or something similarly staining, all over himself because of his actions, would she expect you to pay for her child's choices in that instance too? I hope your nephew apologized for upsetting your daughter. It's clear where the kid got his attitude from anyway. Not today, Hall. Even if you hadn't warned them, vomit comes out to the wash. And the most you owed her is a load of laundry. You did warn them, and your nephew took it upon himself to go directly against that. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.